Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Queued Up, Mission Starts podcast, where Josh and I watch two things that are internet exclusive, whether they be Netflix, Amazon, YouTube Red, what have you, and we talk about them. This week's show is going to be on Godless and Mudbound, both which you can find on Netflix right now. As you noticed, if you've watched the past episodes, we have been the unofficial Netflix podcast, but we're trying to do more. We're trying to go to other websites and whatnot, so keep that in mind. That being said, I want to give you a quick warning. We do talk about spoilers for whatever we review, because I personally feel the best way to review something is to be able to talk about it freely. So warning, if you haven't watched any of these, definitely give them a view before coming here, or if you don't care about spoilers, there we go. The other thing, both shows in this week deal with some heavy topics.
Extremely
heavy topics. I feel like that's kind of like the motive for the show, the motif for the show at this point, but it's just been our luck with the shows we've been watching. So there's a lot of stuff in here that you may not like, but them's the breaks. Before we get into the shows, sorry, I have everything written down. Before we get into the shows, real quick, if you'd like to follow Mission Start on Twitter, go to Mission Start P or follow at Mission Start P. You can follow this podcast at Queued Up Podcast. You can follow Josh at nsabaner1975, which is, I believe, above his head or below his picture. I don't remember how. Did I say 76?
It's all good.
Whatever, you can see it. And I am Chub Rocky. I think I said my name. My name's Greg, and this is Josh. I don't know how Anthony edits it. Anyway, this is our 6th episode. I'm been busy today, and I'm running through everything. Guys, follow those 4 places on Twitter, and if you would like to have us watch a specific show, a suggested show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, definitely contact one of those 4 and let us know. And then that way we can work around getting you on or watching whatever you want us to review.
All we ask is that you have watched whatever we're going to be discussing that day in its entirety.
Thank you, Josh. I want to apologize. I woke up and immediately had to go grocery shopping, so my brain is kind of fried right now. I was hoping
that's always the worst, like when you have to go grocery shopping and you're hungry.
Oh my god. It's also busy as hell because it's Christmas season, or holiday season, I should say. But Anyway, so we're going to start with Godless. I got to pull up the wiki on Godless so that way I can... Because I feel like somebody else can always do a better job at explaining what the show is about than I can. So, Godless, of course, the plot is not at the top. Great. Nope, that's fine. No, that's good. No, that's what I wanted. Josh, why don't you go ahead and describe Godless since fucking Wikipedia is failing me right now?
Oh, that's fine. I've got the IMDb page pulled up here because I could, refer to the cast list if I needed to. The rundown is basically Frank Griffin. He is an outlaw terrorizing the 1880s American West, and he's hunting down Roy Good, his former partner turned mortal enemy. Roy is now hiding out at a ranch as Frank's chase leads him to New Mexico, to the town of La Belle, a town mysteriously made up almost entirely of women.
There you go. I guess I'll start immediately and say that I was not a big fan of the show. I know that that's not going to be a popular opinion about the show, but the first episode was really cool, and the last episode was really cool, but those 5 in between, I could not have cared less about over half the stuff that was going on.
Oh wow.
It was a lot of melodrama. It was a lot of characters like going from point A to point B, or way too much like, I'm gonna talk to you in the long term, but give you this I'm sussing you out eyes. Like, you could have, in my opinion, told this whole story in 4 episodes, and it would have been just as understandable with 7. Or sorry, yeah, you could. It just seems so long. Like, I remember sitting there just going, okay, when is this over? Like, when is the next episode? Like, what? Like, looking at my phone, checking the time, like that kind of thing. And that's not the mark of a good show. If I'm not interested, like like, it's just like, I'll say this that's good about it. The cinematography is fucking phenomenal. The acting, albeit a few characters, is really good. I'd say that Frank Griffin or Daniel Jeff Daniels, best character in the show,
hands down.
Could watch like, if you just cut out all of his stuff, I could just watch his character.
Dude, I could watch his character peel an apple. Yeah. He was that good.
I agree. But like, the guy who played Roy, he couldn't have looked just like yogurt any more than he tried. And I'm not talking about like yogurt with some lemon. I'm talking about plain, unflavored, unsweetened yogurt. And God, that was boring. Like, he was easily the most uninteresting character, and he was the main character. Shit, the girl that he was that he was hanging out with half of the show, which I can't remember her name.
Alice Fletcher.
Alice Fletcher. She was more interesting, and even then, I didn't care about her that much. Like, that was the problem this show had, was like, I just didn't care. I didn't care about any of the characters except for like Frank. Actually, I'm wrong about that. The other character that I really, really dug was the woman who basically was like, well, all the men died, so I might as well, take up that role.
Oh, the Mary Agnes.
Mary Agnes, thank you. Yeah. I liked her a lot. But like, I mean, if we would even talk about the sheriff who had no shadow, first off, that was vague as hell. Like, I get it. I get the end of the episode, or the end of, like, when he gets his shadow back, like, oh, it's his soul, it's his purpose kind of thing. But Jesus Christ, like, they hit it like twice in the show. They were like, oh, his soul's missing at like the first episode and maybe the second, and then it was never touched on again until the last episode.
It was again briefly at the end of episode 4. When Frank comes face to face with him, before he realizes that he is a sheriff that's been trailing him, he says, what is it that's caused you for all the life to just fall out of your face like? Is it the weather?
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I really wanted to like it. I tried to find something that I could grab onto, but there just wasn't. Like, as much as I liked Frank, as much as I liked Agnes, it wasn't enough. The stuff that I thought was most interesting, they decided not to really go into. And for me, that was just, it was lame. The family, the black family that lived down the hill, I felt like their entire thing was way too easily glossed over. And that whole family didn't get enough spotlight, first off. I mean, they were interesting. I wanted to know more about them. But, like, their whole purpose was to have a girl that is the love interest of the deputy, and then their whole family die after their horses are stolen?
Well,
their horses weren't stolen. Sorry, my bad. It was I don't know.
It was a community made up of what they called the Buffalo Soldiers. They were black soldiers that were a cavalry after the Civil War that hunted down traitors and outlaws and things like that. And the reason why they were given the term is because one of them was being attacked by a Native American tribe, which in the show, of course, they don't refer to as Native Americans. They use the old term Indian. Not trying to use it disparagingly. That was the term of the time.
They did try very, very hard to make everything authentic to Western, wild Western culture, but
yes.
some of it seemed very forced too. I'll just say that. But go ahead. Sorry.
They actually did mention and real events that occurred historically in the show. But yeah, they call them the Buffalo Soldiers because when one of them was cornered, he had been hit with arrows like 13 times, been shot, and he was still fighting. They said he was like a cornered buffalo going. But they were a whole community. It was several families that lived there. I mean, the reason why they were taken out is alluded to in the last episode when one of Frank's right-hand men, he's like, remember when we were down in Texas? He's like, yeah. Do you remember that one regiment? Like, yeah, they ran us all over the territory. He's like, no, Frank, they ran us out of Texas. They ran us out of the territory. This is them. They're farmers now, but they're still geared up like they're ready to go to war. We should probably make sure that they're not going to intervene. And at the time,
I totally I remember that whole thing. Okay. My problem with it was that the family themselves had no connection enough for me to care that they died.
Okay.
Like for me in a story, if a character or people die and it's dramatic and it's supposed to mean something, make it mean something. Like this family, for the most part, like we didn't see them do a whole lot. We didn't get a whole lot of interaction with them. It was brief moments, and it really wasn't them so much as it was the girl.
Yeah.
So like, it was this whole scene. It lasted 20 minutes, and it was supposed to mean something important. It was supposed to mean something big, and it didn't. It fell flat on its face, and that was very disappointing because I really wanted more out of that. I mean, maybe, like I said, the show could have been told in 4 episodes, but maybe had they had more episodes, they could have done more with it. I don't know, but
I think it was a pretty impactful thing because, I mean, you didn't see them as much. They weren't touched on as much as other characters were, granted. But the Deputy Whitey, ironic name, here's this teenaged, young, orphaned white boy who's the deputy of this town full of women who is going to a little community an hour away to take violin lessons because he's smitten with this girl. And, obviously her family disapproves. They're like, we don't want you interacting with some white kid bringing his troubles here. They, wanted to just keep to themselves and be left alone. And then you see him go back and her dad catches them, or her uncle catches them, and they touch on his displeasure and say, look, just leave us alone. We want to be left alone. Stay away from her. You come back again, she's going to be in bigger trouble. And then, of course, the mining company, their security going up and saying, look, we're going to start this mine up again. You just keep, we'll divert some fresh water to you guys so the mining water doesn't taint your crops like it did before. Keep to yourself. And they're like, you know what? Everybody keeps telling us to keep to ourselves, and we're not the ones going around bothering it. And then that leads up to the whole thing when Frank shows up, and he's like, "Look, we got business over here. We just want to make sure you're not involved." And then everything goes down, and they end up killing everybody. And
well, that was another thing, is that Frank's, like, for me, the way it was filmed, Frank's like arrival there was supposed to be a surprise or a shocker to the audience. Like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting Frank to be there, but like they telegraphed the hell out of that.
oh, I don't think it was supposed to be a surprise. I mean,
No. You might be right. The script writers didn't mean for it to be a surprise. The cinematographers meant for it to be a surprise.
Okay.
Like, the way the family was having their dinner and talking about things, and then all of a sudden Frank's at the door. Like, I think the cinematographers misunderstood the way that the story was supposed to be told. I feel like there was two different groups working on the same thing, and it didn't quite pan out the way that I think they meant it to. I feel like there's also a level, like, a weird mix between mysticism and anti-mysticism. Like, so the sheriff sees the ghost of a man that also Roy can see at some point, and Native American man who I guess didn't ford the river correctly or whatever, and
his dog.
And his dog. Sorry. And boy, that was mostly needless. I go back to when, the sheriff met him for the first time and talks to him, and then the second time and talks to him, and then that scene, and I go, what was the point of all of that? What was the point of it? To make us get more in line with what the sheriff's doing? To get more into his head? That he's going through a spiritual journey? That was the most underdeveloped character, in my opinion, was the sheriff.
Yeah, and he was a very interesting character too. I really enjoyed him, but I would have liked to have seen a little more character development from him. And most of the development you got of him was other people talking about him, how he used to be versus how he is now, or flashbacks. A couple of flashbacks.
Yeah.
And that one, and most of the flashbacks involving him, if I'm not mistaken, involved his former wife who had passed away during childbirth, and then and then of course his first meeting of Alice. Boy, that was terrible.
Yeah, like that to me, dude. That was like the thing that I think that irritated me the most was like the first episode happens, and I was like, "What's up with this no shadow? That's cool. Like, who's this Roy Moore guy? Show me more Frank." Like, there was so much good in that first episode that really grabbed me, and then it just it never really picked up again. Like, there's a scene, I think it's in the last episode, maybe the first scene of the last episode, when Roy is still early in his life with Frank, and they're both about to be hung, and then the guy comes out of the forest and saves both of them. And
that was actually the first scene of the fifth episode.
Okay. Mm-hmm. God damn it, was that scene good?
Yeah, it was.
Whew, that scene was fucking good. And there are, 90% of the time, I'd say Frank is, any scene with Frank is good. Jeff Daniels deserves an award, if anything, for his role in this movie.
He was tremendous.
I'm sorry, movie. This show.
Yeah, it's a limited series, mini series, whatever you want to call it. But this is it. The 7 episodes. It's about a total runtime of about 8 hours altogether. So for me, I honestly, I loved it. I loved it so much. In fact, that I think it's one of the best things I've seen all year.
Really? That's can't. I just we are not going to see eye to eye on that.
I think it has a lot to do with a couple of things. I've never enjoyed the traditional Western so much. Like the old school John Wayne, Roy Rogers kind of Westerns that, our parents and previous generations were fond of and grew up on. I like a more realistic, grittier telling, especially one that goes out of its way to show so much realism and really bring the harshness of things. And while there are a lot of tropes of the classic Western in this, they are done with that twist of, why should these be glorified? Let's show how terrible it really could be. Like, there are 2 scenes where women are being raped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrible.
But this is
dead kids, and it's terrible.
And that's part of my problem with this show, is that it has that gritty realism that I also really enjoyed, with way too much weird mysticism. Like, pick one, in my opinion. Go to the extent with one of them is how I feel. And when you have like dudes getting shot in the same places as other dudes, but the only reason they survive is plot armor, that bothers me. Like, I know it may sound like it may sound somewhat petty to say something like that, but it was frustrating to me that characters that weren't as important, if you will, getting shot by the same wounds as other men, and then all of a sudden they're alive because a Native American woman like puts like a chemical and lights a match and they're good.
It was gunpowder.
I couldn't tell what the chemicals were. I assumed what she was doing was
gunpowder to cauterize the wounds. Oof, painful.
I mean that's just like stuff that I mean, and I can for the most part get past plot armor, but because I mean there's other shows that, like, you know, Game of Thrones has plot armor, but for something like this, like, it just, I don't know, it seemed wrong. It didn't feel right. You know, like, that was another thing, dude. I gotta say, like, another thing that this show had really bad visual effects when it came to like post gunshot wounds.
Oh, it depends. Like, I thought most overall the effects looked pretty good. I mean,
the scene that sticks out in my head the most is when the black family, where they're laying all their bodies out and all the wounds are like bright colored red, and it's like a splotch that perfectly went outward with the gunshot, and I was like, that's not how gunshots work at all.
I didn't pay too much attention to detail during that scene.
I mean, that's a nitpick. That's a nitpick at best. My complaints for the show come entirely on plot, and that's why I didn't like it. Like I said, Josh, like, my nitpicks about like the realism with the mysticism or the gunshot wounds or a couple characters acting, those are nitpicks that I can absolutely look over if the plot is stellar. But I didn't think the plot was stellar in this show. It started and ended very strong, but like, there's 5 episodes in between that I was mostly bored with. So
I think too, it's, you know, what you can relate with. There was a lot that happened in the show that I can relate with. You know, I grew up on a farm. I grew up around horses. I grew up being terrified of horses, being forced to learn how to ride and being forced to ride horses. That sucked. That was awful. So I kind of could identify with Alice's son, Truckee. You know, not being raised proper because he had no father figure around and lived with his mother and grandmother on a ranch, and, you know, he couldn't deal with horses. I've had to go hunting before, did not enjoy it. And, you know, here this boy is, he's forced to go hunting. The whole process of Roy breaking the horses for Alice in exchange for her teaching him how to read, I thought was really cool. Because here he is, you don't know much about him other than he's supposedly some outlaw that used to run with Frank, but at the same time, he is, you don't know too much about him, and he's carrying this letter from somebody who you find out is his brother. He's not read it because he can't read. I really enjoyed a lot of the show. I really did. It worked for me on so many different levels. I hate that you didn't like it as much, but it's like you and I have said, we're not going to see eye to eye on everything.
Nah.
But I think a part of it is because I can relate to a lot of the things in it more so, I guess, because of our backgrounds. Where you live and where you've been raised versus where I live. We're on opposite sides of the country. You're in a metropolitan area, so to speak, and I am in a very rural area, so to speak.
I don't know how much. I'm not
going to say it comes into a tremendous amount of play, but I think there is something about it.
There might be, but yeah,
comes to it. But overall, it comes down to taste and what you prefer, too.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, our 20 minutes is up, by the way, so we gotta wrap it up soon.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things that I was kind of talking to my dad about when we were grocery shopping today was that he's gonna love this show. He loves westerns. He loves that kind of storytelling, and he really, really likes when everything's tied up in a nice, neat bow. And that was another thing about the show that I didn't like was every storyline was wrapped up.
Yeah, it was, and I sometimes I like it when there's little things left to question, left to wonder, and this pretty much it wrapped everything up, and this was like, here you go. You want to know about this? We take care of this. We take care of that. We take care of this, and this happens.
I would have much preferred some ambiguity.
Yeah.
Which kind of contradicts my comment earlier about the whole thing with the no shadow, but even then they explained it. I think what I wanted with that was a little bit more storytelling with that, and I didn't get it. So, but Josh, go ahead and give your recommendation for it real quick, and then I will do mine, and we'll move on to the next show.
Well, I absolutely loved it. As I said, I think it's one of the best pieces of media that I have taken in all year, whether it be in book or movie or miniseries, television format. This is one of the best things that I've taken in all year for me. I really loved it. I loved how gritty and real it got. I loved the plot. I loved the characters. The acting was incredible. Especially Jeff Daniels. Holy shit. I can't say enough about how awesome Jeff Daniels was in this. And it gave a real glimpse into how harsh life was back then. But I thought there were some fascinating storytelling elements, such as, well, I don't want to go into too much detail. Do I recommend it? Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're a fan of westerns, or especially if you're a fan of dramas. Visuals, the cinematography was incredible. But there are a lot of heavy themes in this. There are 2 scenes that depict rape. There are scenes that show kids being killed. There's a lot of death in this, but it absolutely is worth watching, in my opinion.
I'm not entirely on the opposite end of Josh here. I don't hate the show. I think there are absolutely parts of it that are worth seeing for. My problem is that if you have similar tastes to me, you're gonna find a lot of the stuff that's in between in episodes 2 through 6 that are just very melancholy and bland and dull and straight up boring. I think there are a lot, like I said, there are some amazingly well done moments in the show. a la Frank Griffin, as Josh said. But overall, like I just felt like the kid Truckee was a terrible actor. I felt like maybe not terrible. No, that's not fair. But he definitely wasn't good. Like a lot of his lines were delivered as if it was a cardboard cutout. Um, so that was a big issue for me. Like every time he would speak, I saw it and I was just like, ugh. But uh,
well, a lot of his interaction too came with Michelle Dockery, who was a phenomenal actress.
maybe that's what it was. Is that everybody that he was kind of paired up with was so good that it just felt weird. But whatever.
Possibly.
Uh, I like. I don't know. I like I said, I felt like a lot of the middle part could have been cut out. A lot of stuff could have been left on the cutting room floor, but instead, because it's Netflix, they were able to put as much as they want in, and we got the director's cut of Godless instead of the theatrical cut or
Instead of
something
the
like that.
studio cut.
Yeah, yeah. So with that being said, I would only recommend this show if you have patience. If you have the patience for that kind of cinematography, definitely check it out. But otherwise, skip it. I think if you want to see some stellar acting, definitely like at least watch a few episodes for Frank
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. Thank you. Um, Again, my brain's fried, so I'm just like, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I can fully recommend it. I really don't. So, okay. Well, you know what, guys? It took 6 episodes, but we finally got to a point where Josh and I don't see eye to eye.
Hey, it's going to happen.
All right. So the next show is Mudbound. Josh, if you'd like to give a quick synopsis of Mudbound, please.
All right. Well, two men return home from World War II to work on a farm in rural Mississippi, where they struggle to deal with racism and adjusting to life after war. Both families live right next to each other on the same family. The white family owns the farm, and the black family works the farm for the white family. And it was.
And just to clarify, for pay.
Yeah, for pay.
Yeah.
This is set in the period from 1939 to 1945, I believe.
Yeah, 44, 45, somewhere. Whenever World War II ended, essentially.
Yeah, and the weeks and months thereafter.
Yeah. Josh, why don't you go ahead and start your opinion on this show since I started on the other one?
Man, it is difficult to watch actors that you really admire play downright pieces of garbage.
Yeah.
I love Jonathan Banks. I loved him in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul as Mikey Ehrmantraut.
Yep.
And there is nothing more than I want to do than to see something terrible happen to this man in this movie.
I 100% agree with you.
And that goes... It's not so much as his portrayal as an actor as it is just it was his job to portray somebody so that I find so reviling and disgusting as a person. The character that he portrayed. This is a movie that deals with segregation in the South. And segregation was everywhere back then, but in the South it was especially rough, I believe. I can't say for sure. I was never there, of course, but just, this movie made me angry. This movie, it stirred up a lot of feelings and emotions. Did I enjoy the movie? Yes. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was a well-told story, a very, very tragic and sad story that made me tear up in a couple of places. but at the same time, it's a story that needs to be told.
Everything that you just said is exactly how I feel about it. I went into this expecting just like a story about two families, kind of the Hatfield and McCoy situation, but one's black, one's white. That's what I expected. It's not what I got at all. I got a story about two families struggling to make ends meet. I got a story about two families having to deal with, like just living shitty lives in general. Like they weren't rich. They both families are very poor. Oh, pardon me. Uh, both families hitting unfortunate situations. Both families having a son that come back from war with PTSD. Like, but the difference is how they had to deal with it. I think the movie's entire intention was to show if we take two families in 1945 who have the exact same financial status, how each family has to deal with their lives based on the world around them. The white family had a lot more opportunities and abilities to get past their problems than the black family did.
And that's another thing. They were reasonably okay before they took that farm. They seem to have been living a comfortable life. He had a degree from Ole Miss in engineering, and she was a school teacher, and they lived in Memphis. And all of a sudden, he springs on his wife in the middle of the night. I bought a farm in Mississippi. We're moving in 3 weeks. And my hateful, old, terrible father is going to live with us.
I hated him.
Oh, he was awful.
And it wasn't just the racism; it was his everything. His everything made me hate him.
Yes.
The racism was by far the worst part about him. But like, I'm not sleeping in that other room because it might be slightly colder than in here. Fuck the piano. It's like you don't have the room to really say that. Oh God, I hate it. I hate it. I'm not getting in the cab with some N-word, and it's like,
oh yeah.
I wanted nothing more than to see bad things happen to him. And ultimately we did get that satisfaction. We absolutely got that satisfaction much, much later in the film.
But at the cost of that satisfaction, though,
was bittersweet, is what that's called.
Very, very bittersweet. I loved the relationship that Garrett Hedlund's character Jamie, the McAllen, the brother that came back from the war.
Okay, yeah.
The friendship that he struck up with Jason Mitchell's Roncell Jackson, the young black son, came from.
No, that was awesome. Like their conversations, I could have watched them just like drink and have discussions for 2 hours. I've been fine.
Yeah. And at one point he's like, "Why are you trying to be so nice to me?" And he just looks at him. He's like, "Because you look like you need it. You look like you could use it. Because I haven't seen a lot of people being nice to you." And he's looking at it's like a shared experience. We both both just spent 4 years in Europe and in a war, risking our lives, and people come back home, and now you're supposed to revert back to how things were.
That to me was the most fascinating thing is when you watch those two, compared to each other. You watch him, the white guy, and he just has to deal with his PTSD. He just has to deal with the fact that like he doesn't know what to do anymore. He doesn't know where he's supposed to be. But then you look at the black guy and he's feeling the exact same way. He doesn't know where he wants to be. He wants, things were better then. He has PTSD on top of the racism he has to deal with. It was like, I don't think people a lot of people, especially white people, know what that shit was like then. And this movie does that so well.
Yeah.
Like him coming home and being greeted by the very nice lady inside the store, and he's like, I want to get the sugar and the candy for my sisters, and then he's like, he's gonna leave, and then all of a sudden, like, the racist fucking people are at the door, like, you take the back door inward. It's like can you just imagine what that would be like?
Especially when he said, you know what? I was just in Europe for the past 4 years. They didn't make us go in and out through their back doors of their shops. They treated us like people. So
Yeah.
to experience that and then have to go back to being treated like you used to be treated had to be so demoralizing, so inhumanizing. I couldn't fathom that.
Yeah, it was
just
like,
to be made to feel that way. Ugh.
yeah. I mean, there was also the fascinating dichotomy with like how Laura and Henry were, dealing with each other. They were not happy. She even had the inner monologue of like, I would have, I'd make love to him because he was my husband, but I didn't want to. I never really wanted to. I just felt like it was a good wife to do. But then you go and you look at Hap and Florence, and they're madly in love with each other, still into their, the same age as the other couple, and like they support each other, they love each other, they probably still had sex, and um, and I think a lot of that absolutely has to do with how they had to deal with everything else, with the outside world, with how the world kind of like, I felt like Hap and Florence really found solace in each other and really were like, look, life sucks, the world sucks around us, but we have each other. Whereas Henry and Laura were just like, they couldn't really have that ever because there really was never that overwhelming force against them, if you will. Do you get what I'm saying?
I felt the only overwhelming force against those two was himself.
Yeah. Henry was an idiot.
He was definitely an idiot who made some terrible decisions for his family, who did not appreciate his family in the slightest, and it was pretty much his way or no way at all, right then, right there.
Yeah.
And it was.
Since we're
I enjoy Jason as an actor, but man, he also did a good job at making me hate him in this movie. Whew.
Yeah, like I'd say out of the four main white characters in the show, half of them I hated.
Yeah, him and Pappy, they were terrible.
Terrible people.
The wife, you felt sorry for her, and the brother, of course, is just like, he is so different from his family. He just wants to be a good guy in a terrible time.
Yeah. So since we have 9 minutes left in our discussion on this, I want to spoiler it a little bit. So warning, we haven't really touched upon it, but we're going to now. This is also the part of the show where we're like, this is where things get a little bit real. It turns out towards the end of it that Rondell, he had a kid in Germany with another woman. The woman happened to be white. Obviously, she's German. Because I don't think there's any German black people, especially not at that time.
I'm sure there's one too.
I was like, I could be absolutely wrong, but I don't remember. Anyway, he had a kid in Germany with a white woman. Pappy sees this, contacts the local KKK, and there's a horrific scene of them having like strung up Rondell. Well, actually, no. At this time, he was still fully clothed and just had a noose around his neck. And they bring in Jamie, who had been his really close friend. And the only reason that they were friends was because they shared, like there was a bond between them because they had both gone to war. But also they found friendship in one another because that's the point. Like, something the show tries to really, or the movie tries to really nail down, is that we're really not that different. Just because skin color, we're not different. And they drag Jamie into this barn, and Jamie holds a gun to his father's head for like a moment, and then he gets knocked out. Jamie gets knocked out. He wakes up, and when he wakes up, he sees Rondell stark naked and strung up on the wall, and they force Jamie to make a choice about getting rid of Rondell's tongue, his eyes, or his balls. And Jamie is too weak because he's been knocked out. There's too many of them holding him down, essentially, and forcing Jamie to choose between one of the three to get rid of Rondell. So Jamie, to an extent, thankfully, chooses tongue. I think that was the least worst of the three, arguably. Because I think Jamie knew that Rondell wanted to see his son one day. Maybe have more kids one day. You can learn sign language.
Yeah.
You can write on a piece of paper, but it was super real.
It was a very difficult scene to watch. I could not fathom the helplessness of both Ronsel or Jamie in that scene. I could not fathom the...
It legit made me cry.
It did me too. It was brutal. It was hard to watch.
I was angry. I was mad. Like, I was angry. I was sad. I was scared. Like, they did... I'll just say this much. They did a good job with making it to the point that I wanted to, like, jump through the screen and grab a fucking machine gun and just take out all of them. Like,
it was terrible, man. Ugh.
Oh man, it was rough to watch. It was super, super. And that's the thing is about a viewer in that scene, is I felt helpless because I'm just a viewer. But it's real. Like, that was the world in Mississippi in 1945. And whoo boy.
Yeah, it was not something I would ever want to experience in person. Seeing it on screen, knowing in the back of your mind, this is all staged. It's all effects, camera work, stuntmen.
My brain wasn't telling me that.
My brain was not telling me that at all. I was sitting there thinking, this is just absolutely fucking terrible. Stop now. And I couldn't. It makes you. It puts you in a place where, there's a lot of racism present today.
A lot.
But the level that this showed, the segregation and the just flaunted hate and the whole know your place or you're going to get what's coming to you. We have come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. But man, rough to see. And it's a movie that makes you uncomfortable. It really does. As a viewer, it's just like, I don't want to see things like this happen to anyone, regardless of whatever the reason. I don't want to see that happen to anyone. And this is something that people lived in fear of just because of how they were born. It was terrible.
Yeah, and I think that's why, to an extent, I think it would be important for a lot of people to view this movie, because it's accurate.
It is. Like I said, it's not an easy movie to watch, but it is a story that was necessary to be told, and it is told well. And it will make you feel emotions.
Absolutely. Like I think both of us said, I cried. I cried quite a bit at the end of the movie because there was just a lot to deal with. And what was funny was somebody went and not somebody. I'm sorry. They filmed the end of the film at the beginning, or they showed it at the beginning, that I didn't understand. Like, they're digging a hole in the rain. and it was like, Dad would hate to be buried in a buried in a slave's grave, and they were like, we have no choice. And I immediately was just thinking, like, when after the movie was over, and I thought back to the scene, I was like, no, put him in there, fuck him.
Yeah. It was,
yeah.
I was originally going to watch it last night. I didn't watch it until this morning, because last night after we ate, I was just like, I'm going to relax. And Misty hadn't watched all of Godless yet, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm like, here, go ahead and watch a couple episodes of that. And then I was going to watch it first thing this morning, and she's back on her 11:30 to 8 shift. I was like, yeah, watch a couple more episodes of Godless, trying to get her to finish it. And then after she started, that's when I watched it, like 11:30 to, when you messaged me, you're like, what time do you want to go? And I was like, well, just finished. I was getting ready to make lunch. So, yeah, we're good. But, man, that movie, it's good.
It's good. Like, so time is up. Yeah. And we're gonna go ahead and give our recommendations. I'll go first on this one. Amongst phenomenal acting, a very well told story in the span of 2 hours, which is crazy that movie is 2 hours because it didn't feel like it. There is a lot told, a lot that is shown that is incredibly powerful, rough, but important. That's the word I think I'd take away from this. Is this movie is important. I would like more people to see this movie. Great, like a lot more people to see this movie, and that's why it gets a very high recommendation from me. I highly, highly, highly checking out this film. Go into it knowing that it is a hard R. That's not a pun on how often the word's used. But it is R-rated and it's intentionally R-rated. So, but I with that being said, I incredibly, I'm sorry, I give it an incredibly high rating, high recommendation. My brain is just not working right now.
I've got to say the same. Absolutely recommend it. It is a story that needed to be told. It is a wonderfully crafted, powerful story that makes you experience the feelings that you do intentionally. Because basically, if you don't experience those feelings, I'm sorry for you as a person. It goes a long way in showing how compassionate you yourself probably are by experiencing those emotions, the ones that you're designed to feel. It's a very powerful, moving piece of work. I have to say, I mentioned that, pardon me, I mentioned that Godless is one of the best things that I watched all year. This is also one of the best things I watched all year. It was for a completely different reason, but I will say that this was the most important thing I watched all year. It really should be viewed by a lot of people.
As many people as possible.
Yeah. I mean, if it weren't so upsetting, it is a movie I would want Madison to watch. Not at the current age she is, but I want her to understand, the reasons that I always say to treat people with kindness, dignity, respect, be polite, be respectful. Because this goes right into dealing with those awful, terrible things. I absolutely recommend everybody watch it.
Yeah. So, all right, there you go, guys. Briefly, before I get into the final part of the show, I want to just Rob Morgan. Do you just work for Netflix?
He's been in 7 different things on Netflix now. This movie and 6 series. He was in Godless. He was the uncle of the Buffalo Soldiers. You know, the girl that Whitey was interested in is her uncle. He was in Daredevil. He was in The Defenders. He was in Luke Cage. Stranger Things. That's right. He was the one deputy in Stranger Things. One of Hopper's deputies. Yeah,
he's a phenomenal actor. I love him. But
he is. He is great. He did an incredible job as Hap Jackson in this movie.
This is probably my favorite role that he's done so far, honestly.
Yeah, he was great in this.
But yeah, I was thinking about that like earlier. I was like, you know, he's just in everything that I watch now. This is great.
Well, you know, I thought the same thing about the. Have you ever watched Orange Is the New Black?
Yeah.
Okay, the one guard, Wanda Bell, the lady guard, the older lady guard.
Yes.
She played Dustin's mom in Stranger Things, and then she was also in Mindhunter when we reviewed that a few weeks ago too. Yeah, and I was like, man, she's doing everything for Netflix. And then here comes Rob Morgan. He's like, I trump her 3 with 7.
All right, guys. So for next episode, we are actually going out of our wheelhouse. We have done 6 episodes, and every episode is Netflix. But this time, we're stretching out a little bit. However, we're also in the holiday season. It's very busy for both of us, and so we're gonna kind of tone down the amount we have to watch. We're gonna do 3 movies. The first one is going to be Laser Team 2 on YouTube Red. Josh would have to watch the first Laser Team now. Not that that's a problem because the movie's fun. The second one is an Amazon original, The Big Sick, which 2 reasons why I put this on the list. A, it's one of the few Amazon original films. It's also a movie that I've been wanting to watch. That came out this year that I have been told to watch 1,001 times to watch. So I want to check it out. Plus, I love Camille Nanjiani, so that's a big reason for me. And the other one, which actually comes out right before, or the weekend before the recording of the next episode, Bright, starring Will Smith on Netflix. So we have 3 movies. What were you saying?
That one I'm really excited about. That was actually going to be, if you hadn't had anything for us to go, that was one of the things I was going to suggest, because that just looks flat out cool as hell.
I think Bright is actually like the only thing towards the end of December on Netflix that's even noteworthy.
Well, there's one other thing that I'm really super interested in. It comes out on the same day, but that's just me in particular. It's a documentary series called The Toys That Made Us, focusing on like 80s toys and stuff. So I'm super excited. Yeah. I'm super
I'll probably, if I have time for that, I'll probably end up watching that just for fun. But yeah, the other reason I chose these 3 films, like I said, is because I want to make this show more than Netflix. Like, Netflix is going to be our primary home. Yeah, because that's where most of the big series are. But
we both have access to Hulu. We both have access to Amazon Prime. And YouTube Red, like you said, free first month trial. You never know. May find something.
They're doing a lot of really good original content. I mean, half of it's already people who are YouTubers as a whole, but there could be something. So,
Michael Showalter directed The Big Sick.
Yes,
that's enough reason for me to watch it right there, man.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for this podcast. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I need to be a little bit more on editing the descriptions and titles for the episodes. Like episode 5 didn't have the title. I didn't put the timestamps in there because busy. But Josh, real quick, where can they find you online?
Well, aside from the Twitter handle right below, they can also find me at nsabanur76 on twitch.tv. Although I haven't streamed in about a month, I've just been super busy, lots of things going on, but I intend to soon, I swear.
Hey, like I said, that's why I chose 3 movies again. It's just a busy month for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Twitter at ChubRuckGeek, like I said in the beginning of the show. I'm still doing the Saturday streams on Half Empty Energy Tank. So if you'd like to come see me play some video games, come check out twitch.tv/halfemptytank. Also, every Sunday, Anthony and I do a video game news podcast. You can check that out every single Sunday live on twitch.tv/missionstartp. What we do now is we do about a 30-minute pregame show where we just discuss whatever we want. We do the main podcast, which starts about an hour, and then we have a post show where we just kind of bring up stuff we didn't get to talk about in the main show. It's a lot of fun, but the only way to get the pre-show and the post-show is by watching us live. Otherwise, definitely check out the YouTube, which is where this show lives. Which is if you're watching it, that's where you are. But we have other stuff coming down the pipeline. Anthony and I are planning on a Let's Play show in the next year. Lots of cool stuff coming out. Also, we have plenty of other podcasts on the main site. We have my reviews on the main site. So go check out missionstartpodcast.com for tons of different content, convention coverage, the Rolling 20s podcast, the Con Over, and of course our main podcast, which Anthony and I host. Other than that, guys, that is going to be it. Definitely watch the stuff that we recommend in every episode, so that way when it comes out, you can be caught up along with us. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Take care, everybody.